vision about existence, this word, this concept, this thing, existence. What is it? We say God exists. Okay, exists, but you don't know what existence is. So how do you say God exists while you don't know what existence is? This exists because I touch it, because I see it, I smell it, I hear it. But God exists in a totally different sense, right? So you must have a general definition or a general understanding of what existence is before you say God exists and God created existence. So
So in Hinduism they answer that?
So in Hinduism, they agree with other religions that we cannot answer this intellectually. That's why we cannot use our mind to understand the truth of existence, and therefore we cannot use our minds to understand the truth of religion. So first, the truth.
Do they believe there's no God, or they believe in a God?
They don't believe, they see. They encourage or they teach that you should see what existence is, because mind doesn't help us
What
to
about
understand.
God? Do they believe God?
Not believe. They don't like the word believe. They like the word see God.
Okay, do they see God?
They see God, but if I tell it to you, that's nothing. That's meaningless. You should see it for yourself. So
when they say see God, is God Brahma or?
Yes, they have many names and many details.
Do you believe in Brahma?
Yes, Brahman is existence.
You've seen Brahma, yeah?
I haven't.
You don't believe in Brahma?
I don't believe. I'm on a spiritual way. Like
Okay.
Once you start understanding intellectually, you start an intellectual, spiritual way, sadhana. They call it sadhana, spiritual way.
What do they call it?
Sadhana. Sadhana means spiritual way.
Sadhana or Sanatana?
Not Sanatana. No, Sanatana is the name of Hindu religion. It's different. But sadhana means the way you start moving spiritually in your life to go beyond this mind that is blocking us from understanding what existence is. Okay. So, we say that going beyond mind involves rituals, worship. It can involve 1001 thing.
You do rituals as well?
I haven't started yet, but I'm still learning. Okay.
You do Murti Puja? Murti Puja?
No. I'm following Advaita Vedanta doctrine, which focuses on philosophy.
Okay.
Focuses on philosophy. So there are many pathways. There are many ways in Hinduism, including Islam. Even Islam is considered as a way to God, a legitimate way to God.
Idol worship. Idol worship.
Islam.
No, I'm talking about Murti Puja, isn't it? And I assumed you said that Murti Puja is something that takes you to God in Islam as well.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I mean, even Islam, even Christianity are considered in Hinduism, within Hinduism, as one of the paths to God.
Right.
So, but they are paths beyond mind. They are not intellectual. They are not concluded by logic.
So if it's not by logic, you're saying, am I correct to assume that you mean by experience? It is through your experience that you see God?
Yes, by experience and something deeper than experience, which is the annihilation of the ego. Actually, the sadhana, the spiritual way, is a process, a long process, a lifelong process of annihilating the ego. The ego involves the mind, the character, the identity that is given to us by society. All of this is blocking us from knowing what existence is. So my question is, in Islam, isn't it a legitimate question to ask what existence is before we decide whether there is a God or not?
You can ask any question you want. In Islam, you can ask any question you want, but then the answering of the question or the absence of the question from the argument that I'm going to posit to you doesn't necessarily conclude the absence of a God or a deity.
Of course. No.
That's what I would say.
Exactly.
Like the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Exactly.
So just because a person can't necessarily explain existence, that doesn't necessitate that there is no end to the contingent chain. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Like if I'm kind of speaking to you as a skeptic, if you're a skeptic, would you accept that you exist?
Of course.
Would you accept that there is existence?
Of course.
So in philosophically, there's three types of existences. There is an impossible existence, there's a contingent existence, and there is a necessary existence.
Exactly.
We are contingent existence. So we rely on something else.
Yes.
That relies on something else, that relies on something else, and it goes on. Now here's the question that I posit. Can you have an infinite regress of dependent things?
Both are impossible. Infinite and finite regress. Both have contain a logical fallacy. If you say infinite regress, that's impossible.
Yeah.
There must be a finite final cause, right?
Yeah.
But if you accept the final cause, you're breaking the other law of cause, the law of cause and effect, right?
But this isn't the argument of causation. This is the argument of contingency, where we're just talking about existences. This transcends cause and effect, because cause and effect is something that's questioned even in science as well. That it's again taken on face value. It's kind of seen to be an axiom of things. However, contingency, when we rely on something that relies on something that relies on something, like you said, it would be an absurdity to assume that it goes on. The only if it's not existent, if it's not contingent, if it's not impossible, the only other thing at the end of the chain has to be a necessary existence.
Yes.
Logically, rationally, the inference to the best explanation tells us there has to be a necessary existence.
But the necessary existence contradicts with the logical law of cause and effect, right?
But that's why I'm saying even the law of cause and effect comes under question when infinite regress of dependencies doesn't come under as much question and critique as a cause and effect does.
That's why I told you that both options, both ways contain a fallacy. If you accept infinite regress, that's a fallacy. It's impossible. Infinite regress is impossible.
What's the fallacy that you said in the other one?
And the other
that there's a necessary existence.
It will demolish, or it will contradict with cause and effect, because this necessary existence will not have a cause.
When you say it's fallacious, are you referring to modal logic? Because in modal logic, it's not fallacious.
Why?
Because in modal logic, you've got contingent, you've got necessary, you've got impossible existence. In modal logic, it'll be if P, then Q, P, therefore Q. It falls well within that pattern, and you've got the three types of existences, which again are in modal logic. Then when you look, of course, in philosophy as well, you've got the likes of Aristotle, Leibniz, and Avicenna and the likes. So this hasn't come into, there's never been an issue when it comes to the logical and the reasonable nature that there is a necessary being. It's the first time I'm actually coming across it. The issue has only been that, you can have an infinite regress. That's the only kind of alternative to that. To say that that's fallacious, I'd want to know how that's fallacious.
Just because at the beginning you say, like we say, there must be a cause for every effect, right?
No, that's not right. Cause and effect is a different argument. That's the argument from causation. I'm talking about the argument of contingency. That's something different. That's to do with modal logic.
Okay, but the necessary existence.
Yeah. You're talking about the prime mover. That's the Aristotelian argument. That's to do with the prime mover. I'm not talking about that. This is different. This is to do with dependencies and modal logic. Because I already knew that certain people can have issues with that. Some people don't even believe in the Big Bang Theory. They wouldn't even believe that the universe came into being. So I undercut all of that. Because we're not physicists. We should. What was the point of us going into that? But, go ahead.
Let's come back to my basic question.
I'll give you an example, yeah? Because we sometimes understand things through examples. If I was to throw something over there, and I had to ask permission from him, he had to ask permission from him, he had to ask permission from him, and it went on for infinity. the permission, I wouldn't ever get to throw the ball. There has to be an end, somebody to say yes, then it comes back, yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
Then I throw it.
Okay.
So the mere fact that we exist
Yes.
means that there is an end to that chain. Otherwise, being contingent beings, we wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
But our very nature relies on this predication that there is a necessary being.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But you are talking to someone who is a theist. I'm a Hindu. I am not an atheist. So I believe in God anyway. But we have a different, totally different approach. What the approach is, we don't know what existence is. And I'm asking you, according to Islam, according to Prophet Muhammad, did Prophet Muhammad say what existence is before he tells you that God exists, that there is a creator who gave existence? What is existence? This is the question.
So when you talk about existence,
Yes.
what do you mean, like, what is existence? Because I can tell you existence is being conscious and living. Existence could be, like Descartes said, I think, thinking. I think, therefore I am. Then Wittgenstein would say language. So there's different kind of, oh sorry, let me just plug that on here. So that's why I'm saying that, look, when it comes to existence, that there's various answers of existence, and
Very nice.
and there's different kind of ways people will kind of unpack that and approach that. However, the point still stands. There's something even basic to existence, which is the necessary being or the necessary existence. That's something that all existence that we see and understand around us relies upon. This oneness, this necessary being who's independent, who's eternal, who has will, who has power, immeasurable power, who's intelligent. So that's what we're saying, that look, these questions are fantastic. And there's some questions that if a tree falls over and there's no one here to hear it, does it make a sound? Now that's fantastic. That can be debated and that can be discussed. However, coming to God is more fundamental to everything. These sorts of questions don't interfere when it comes to the existence of God. And now when we're dealing with the existence of God, you said your name is Abdul?
Abdul Qadir.
Abdul Qadir. So when it comes to the existence of God, now we need to determine that if God is bridging that gap from his immeasurable knowledge to our limited knowledge, now we're dealing with scripture. How do we determine which scripture came from this necessary being? Number one. Number two, the rishis or the prophets. How do we look at the criteria about which of them came from God and which teachings we can kind of go to that will be incorruptible? That's why something that's fundamental to everything. Like, I agree with what you said, because when you were talking about the ego presupposes a being presupposes existence, and again we're in a loop again. When you said, look, that the ego is something that's the most fundamental. I'm saying the most fundamental of the fundamental is a necessary being upon which any idea or any conception relies upon. That is the necessary being which logic has no issue with, the philosophers have no issues with, all the dharms, the Sanatan dharm, Christianity, Judaism, Sikhism, Islam, they have no issue with. The issue then comes with scripture. With which scripture is it? What's the criteria of that scripture? And then now you'll have certain people that might be atheists, or certain people that will believe and will want empirical evidence. Some people will want experiential evidence. Now we need to determine, okay, evidence. What sort of evidence do we look at? Scripture. You're telling me scripture. Do you have evidence of that? Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
Okay.
But please, you said that there are many visions or opinions about what existence is.
Yeah, depending on the questioner, depending on the answerer, depending on the context.
So basically, this means that we don't know what existence is. We don't know for sure, we human beings, we rational beings, we don't know what existence means, and yet many of us, like Abrahamic religions...
Let me just correct
Yes.
that. Because like I said, as believers, we believe that the primary existence is a necessary being upon everything depends. That is the existence. Like, existence comes from God. Now, our existence now is in relation to that. It's contingent. Like, we are dependent beings, and our existence, the purpose of the existence, about Who are we? We, like, you'll speak to somebody, they'll say, okay, existence. But that's a very generic term. Existence, the mere fact that I think, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Now for you to say, look, as human beings we don't know, but a lot of people subscribe to the fact that we think. The mere fact that you are thinking is existence. Some people will say consciousness is existence. Some people will say experience is existence. All of them are correct. All of that.
How can this be that all of them are correct?
Because
what
it's such a generic term, and it depends in which facet you're asking that. If for example I say from numbers between 1 and 10, add that to numbers between 90 and 100. Now because I'm leaving a big barrier to entry from 1 to 10, and then from 90 to 100, I'm going to get various answers. However, if I say 1 plus 1, so if you say, what is existence to you? What is existence to Islam? What is existence to so-and-so? Okay. What is existence to this? So what you're doing is narrowing it down. What is existence in terms of the metaphysical? What is existence in terms of a banker, at work, doing taxes for somebody? Do you see?
Yeah. You're saying that there are multiplicities of experiencing existence for everyone, right?
I'm saying it's context-based. Like in philosophy, I gave you the example that there are 3 types of existence.
Yes, I see.
That's what existence is.
But these are types, but not what existence is. These are classifications, descriptions, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the definition of what it is. First we define it, then we classify it, we give it some descriptions. Description is not defining, right?
So I'll tell you.
Because I exist, you exist, and God exists.
Yeah.
God exists. In what sense?
Okay.
Do we have the same type or kind of existence?
What do you want defined? A necessary existence or contingent existence?
Existence as such first.
Necessary, yeah?
Existence as such must be defined first. Then we talk about types of existence. We can define types of existence. Necessary is a type of existence. Contingent existence is a type of existence. But what in the first place is existence, that is the main question.
I don't think that's the main question.
Because if you say God exists and we don't know what existence is,
Is there?
Huh? Is there?
Yeah.
Is there? It means right? God exists.
Is there. Not exist. God is there.
Okay, so you're replacing the word exists by the word is. And this doesn't change.
There.
Is there, but there must be interpreted metaphorically, right? It's not in a place. There is not a place, right? It's not a place, not a time, right?
God,
So God is. At least we say God exists.
God exists.
It means God is.
Yeah.
Right? This is so we are replacing exist
so what's the
with
opposite?
Is.
So either something doesn't exist, i.e. it's not there.
Yes. Something is not.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There cannot even be types of existence actually.
They actually can.
They cannot. Because if you say contingent existence.
Okay, let me give you an example. So when I asked you initially, do you believe you exist? You gave a very quick answer. You said yes.
Yes, of course.
But what is existence?
I don't know.
No, but you should.
This is the miracle.
How can you say you existed?
This is the miracle.
No, but how can you say you exist if you don't know what it is? Why do you say yes?
Because I am in it. I don't know it by intellectual thinking.
No,
I know it.
No, but
I know that
according to your standard, if you can't define it, then
this is the mistake of Descartes. Descartes didn't realize that we know that we exist not by thinking. How can you say that I conclude that I exist?
Descartes had many other fundamental problems.
Existence
wasn't the only problem.
As the existentialists say, existence precedes thinking.
No, but coming back to this point, Abdul Qadir, when I said, do you exist? You said,
I know it not by thinking. I know it by...
What is it then?
By being it.
But what is it?
It's self-evident.
There you go then, isn't it?
Existence is self-evident, but we don't know it by our
But you can't
minds.
define it though.
No.
So you can't define it.
Where do you see it?
By not being able to define it, it means that we cannot know it by
doubt.
intellectual,
Doubt.
right? By reason.
Does that mean it's not important? does that
Of
mean
course,
it's wrong?
no, it means the opposite actually. On the contrary, it means it's the most fundamental thing we must know before we start using our reasons to know anything else.
But like you said, if you don't know it, does that mean you can't question and you can't progress without knowing that? That would make it an axiom.
You cannot, you cannot conclude intellectual certainty from, for example, God exists and things like that. These are intellectual analysis.
So you're coming to the inference for the best explanation, yeah?
I see the Creator as
Not the best explanation.
The inference, you're inferring, yeah?
Yes, but
You're inferring that you exist.
no, I'm not inferring. I'm saying that I didn't know it by reason, by inferring. I know it. I know it by being it now.
What is that?
By
in order to
isness.
What
stay
is-
balanced,
I-
you have to
How do you know? How do you know you're not plugged
If I
into?
say it to
how do
you-
you know you're not plugged into, like, you're not a brain in a vat, or you're not plugged into a computer system?
This is something I cannot say that I know for sure. It's
So you
I-
could be in a machine.
yes,
This could all be like a simulation.
yes, of course.
Then why did you say you exist then?
I exist.
You said
Not
you
in-
know.
wait, no, wait. I exist, but not
talking about
as
matrix.
I don't know existence by touching it, by senses. I don't know
So
existence
how do
by
you know
touching
it? Then again, it comes
By
back
senses.
By
What you're
senses,
saying-
yeah. Which sense? Which sense?
by existing. I know existence by existing, not by senses.
Listen,
Yeah, but-
what you
but-
saying? You
what
saying
you're-
you
but
know?
Pardon?
You know, knowing.
Yes.
Do you know what knowing is?
Knowing
Yes.
is knowing
is
existence
experience.
is
Mama,
self-evident.
experiences
It's
feelings.
not knowing
Feeling,
by
which
something.
feeling? He
So
feeling.
I know it by it.
So you're saying
Do
you
you
can't-
understand? I know
No.
it by it. Knowing existence is by existence
So you
itself.
accept self-evident things, and you can still progress.
And you know it by it. Self-evident things
Which
are
feeling?
known
Which
by
feeling,
them.
sir? Which
by
feeling?
it.
But what's it, though?
That's why they are
Which feeling
self-evident.
do you know?
Because
well, I would
you know
argue-
them by them.
But I would argue existence
Which sense?
would be self-evident. But you had an issue with that at the beginning, and when I asked you that same question,
What
yeah, like, do you exist? You immediately said yes, you exist, and then you said, well, I know it from my experience. But for the
My experience.
yeah,
I
you
didn't
say-
say from my experience. I
Okay.
said by existing. I said by existing.
Well, is
I
that not experience?
I know that I exist by existing,
But you
not
ju-
by thinking.
No, but that's you can't define
Or by
something by
touching.
using the same word.
It's not
You say- I
making
say what's
sense what you
existence.
say.
Of course.
I said what's existence. You said I know existence by existing. So
That's-
if I was
that's
to,
the only possible
so
way,
if I
actually.
asked you what's flocking cellular amplification, you say, oh, it's when I do flocking cellular amplification. That's not you defining it. You shouldn't be using the word in the definition of that word.
I said in the beginning we cannot define existence.
But then why were you so quick to
how
say?
do you then define existence?
no definition.
Well, what we're saying is it's an axiom, isn't it? But
an
he's
axiom.
saying, yeah, he's saying without, like you shouldn't necessarily progress the conversation. If it's an axiom, we have to first get rid of this notion about what actually existence
Are you a
is.
scientist?
Sorry?
Are you a scientist?
No.
Have you studied science?
Yes. And philosophy as well.
Do you study science? You study philosophy.
Yes.
Tell
And
me-
religion.
And religion.
Yes.
So you're well versed in everything.
Well, not everything. But
So
I had a conversation with you last time. You were very well versed, and we had a nice conversation.
well, I have to tell you, I left school at 13 years of age.
Oh yeah, you told me.
And I
that.
spent 61 years in gambling clubs, so I don't have an education.
61 years?
Yes, I don't have an
Did
education.
you at least win something in those 61 years?
Pardon?
Did you at least win?
you would have lost.
No, but I'm just saying. The way having a discussion like this, we are conditioned to be logical. There is nothing about us or creation that is logical. Absolutely nothing. Doesn't matter what the physics says, and it doesn't matter what science says. Because science, if they go on for another billion years, they will never be able to explain consciousness. That's a fact.
How do you know though?
Because I know.
That's not sufficient.
Well, let me put it. Science has
Yeah.
been around for about 300 years now.
No, but consciousness is something
And
they.
right
it's,
now-
it's a new thing that they're venturing into.
How can you say it's a new thing? How can you
because
put it down as a
consciousness
new
studies have just started somewhat recently, like in the last 15 odd years.
Oh, don't say that.
Like I don't want to
Oh,
fall in the God of the gaps
No.
fallacy and
Oh,
just
Please,
because
don't say-
science can't
don't-
answer this,
don't say that.
therefore it's
Consciousness
That's
is
all.
mentioned in the Upanishads. In the
I'm
Upanishads of
an interpretation of consciousness.
no,
as
no,
you
no, no.
mentioned.
It's consciousness mentioned in the Upanishads 500 or 300 years
What does it
before,
mention?
before AD.
What does it say?
It says in some of the Upanishads, it says consciousness is Brahman. Brahman is consciousness. Existence is consciousness.
So who's Brahman?
And this is miraculous actually.
So if consciousness is Brahman and you're saying Brahman is, what is Brahman?
Brahman is existence. And existence is consciousness. But this is, yes. This is what...
There's something else I would like to ask.
So he's saying existence is his God, in other words. So that was what we were saying, but we were talking in terms of philosophy. We were saying that because there are certain people that had issues with God, they said, look, but we have no issues with necessity. So we have no issue with having a necessary existence, but to define that as God, that's the issue. But you've come along saying, look, we can't necessarily go into this sort of stuff. We have to analyze what existence is.
Yes.
But you've come along and said existence is Brahma, but can you prove Brahma is existence?
No, that's why at the beginning I tried to ask you what is existence before you tell me the types of existence.
Yeah.
What types of existence there are, you should first define existence in itself. For example, tell me what juice is before you tell me the types of juice you have.
Not necessarily, because if somebody's asking what liquid is, part of the definition of a liquid can be densities of that liquid as well.
For example, okay.
You know what I mean? For example, you got orange juice, you got oil, you got water. So this is why I told you, you're asking an umbrella term. It's
You
something
can
general.
talk about the intensity, but you have to define what a fluid is before you talk about
in
the
terms of its
qualities.
molecular. Yeah.
Yes.
So the thing is that if someone's saying, oh, but that's the orange juice liquid. But that's a type of liquid.
Exactly.
So when I'm talking about a fundamental type of existence, philosophically is a necessary existence.
Okay.
And from that comes a contingent existence. I said this to you, but then you were like, no, but that's a type of existence, this and that. So do you see, like, to us, I already defined it. Even if you want to look into philosophers, there are certain philosophers that were saying, cogito ergo sum, which I think, therefore I am. Thinking, that's a type of, like, that is his form of existence. And,
For example, let me tell you.
A form of into the abyss, the way they interpret it.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing I'd like to ask you this question.
Sorry, Vernon.
Oh, you remember my name. I'd like to ask you this.
Of course I remember you. I told you I remembered our conversation.
How is it possible for a man of your intellect can confess to be religious?
How?
Yes.
I would say from the accumulation of evidence that I've seen.
From accumulation of
From
evidence.
the accumulation of evidence that I've seen.
Just
The inference.
seen or read?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Then from the accumulation of evidence, the inference to the best explanation is the believing of a God. For me, it's
Good.
the best evidence.
Do you think that we were created in order to believe?
Yes,
What is a belief? A belief has no foundation.
it does.
No, it does not. It changes. You go through the history of our life,
Yes.
and you will see constantly that
Yeah.
belief changes. Nothing more so than these scientists. What they say is a fact today.
It's fine.
What they say is a fact today.
Lights, camera, action.
Lights,
What,
action.
what they say is a fact today, 10 years, 20 years, it's no longer fact, it's changed. And my belief that I will defend
I thought it
in any
changes.
pardon?
I thought it changes belief. It does change belief, yeah.
And the belief that you have, that the scientists said 20 years ago,
But you're saying you have a belief, but you're also saying these beliefs are just changeable.
it's an example of mankind, how we believe. And then it
But I
changes.
reject that premise though, because as Muslims,
You don't think belief changes?
No, because as Muslims we believe that the essence of that all the prophets came before was belief in one God. Whether it's Moses, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Prophet Muhammad, whether it's Adam, belief stayed the same. Yes, there were moments that corruption took place, but the essence of that belief that came from